Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining today. My name is Damian Howley. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Nimbello, and we are grateful to have this time with you. We've got quite a lot in store for today. I'm going to run you through a short introduction to Nimbello, just let you know who we are, what we do, who we work with. Then we are going to hand it over to the FAIC Group to talk about our SyteLine to Nimbello integration. After that, we are joined by Edsal Manufacturing, and we're going to take them through a question and answer session so you can learn a little bit more about their team, their process, and how they leverage Nimbello. And then after that, we are going to hand it off to Geraldine Christner, our product manager, who is going to walk you through our OCR and workflow software. So bear with us. We have stocked it full of information so we can kind of cross all the different aspects of working with Nimbello and our software. I know I mentioned quite a few different stakeholders there. I'd just like to introduce you to everyone. My name is Damian. I'm on the left there. And then we've got Geraldine Christner, who's our product manager from Nimbello. From the Nimbello side, we also have on the call today 3 of our dedicated SyteLine reps, Charlie, Nikki, and Pam. From Edsal, we're joined by Boris Goldenberg, the Vice President of IT, and Wesley Higdon, the Assistant Controller. And then from the FAIC Group, we are joined by Brian Fraser, Senior Partner, and Denny Hendricks, Senior Software Developer. So lots of faces. You'll get a copy of this slide afterwards to remember everybody. So
pick the right speaker.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, and we've got just a little bit of background noise, but we'll just ask. We're in an open format here, so we just ask everybody tries to keep the mute on. Okay, so let's talk about Nimbello. At Nimbello, we are experts in automating PO-based invoices. And what that means is that we are focused on complex invoices at high volumes, and we're focused on deploying automation. We focus predominantly on the manufacturing and higher ed space. Our customers range from about 12,000 invoices annually to about 1 million. In fact, our largest customer receives about 180,000 invoices per month. And then we're well-versed in multiple invoice formats. So whether they're attached as a PDF or they're in electronic format as EDI or CXML, we can receive them all. As far as our background is concerned, not a lot of people know, but we've been in business since 2010. So we are celebrating our 15th year. We process about $12 billion of payables annually. And you can just see a selection of our logos up there in the manufacturing and higher ed space. I think we're quite fortunate to have some fairly recognizable brands, especially in higher education. Every year we continue to get awards for how easy it is to work with us and our performance in invoice management and AP automation. And then lastly, we take security and privacy very seriously. We have a growing number of customers who have secure contracts and are deployed on Infor GovCloud, and we are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, and again just are focused on the secure nature of our software. As it relates to our kind of exposure to SyteLine, we have been exclusively focused on SyteLine and Workday for the last 4 years. We've been a 4-year sponsor at the Sun Conference. We work closely with the FAIC Group, and they're going to take you through and talk a little bit about our pre-built integration. Currently, we've got 28 SyteLine customers, and we've launched over 70 manufacturing customers. We continue to kind of expand within the SyteLine environment, not only our customer base, but also our capabilities, our integration, our functionality, right? It's continuing to cater for manufacturing, specifically on SyteLine. So we've done a lot of great work over the last 4 years. As far as Nimbello and our core offering, I mentioned earlier, we focus on complexity, right? So this has been a differentiating factor for us since we were founded in 2010. There's a ton of AP automation out there, and I constantly put it in air quotes. And it means a lot of different things to a lot of different companies. AP automation may mean as simple as, an OCR ability. What we have done at Nimbello, as we've said, we want to focus on as much automating as much of the throughput as possible and making it as touchless as possible. So whereas in some of these other systems, your team would be left with the responsibility of identifying exceptions or overages or miscalculations, all of that is handled through Nimbello. We pull in your purchase orders, your invoices, your receipts. We map all of this together. We look at the individual line items, and we tell you specifically which line items are throwing an exception. And this results in a much higher percentage of your invoices going through and going over to SyteLine. On top of that, we also offer payment automation. So once you get a clean invoice that goes through, we can automate the check disbursement or ACH disbursement on top of that. As it relates to our software, we sell two different capabilities. One is our core AP software suite. The other is our payments capability. Our software suite, we provide you with a digital AP inbox, the OCR functionality, which you'll see a little bit later on, our SaaS platform for processing all of your invoices, routing and approving, and then that SyteLine integration. And as far as our payments is concerned, we pull that payments data from SyteLine, automate the payment disbursement, and then we house all of the settlement data inside both Nimbello and SyteLine. So that, again, that's the full kind of payment cycle. Lastly here, we are focused very much on service. A large portion of our company is focused on service. In fact, that's one of my core responsibilities. We've taken a lot of customers through our implementation process. All of those SyteLine customers we have gone through our implementation process. We staff each implementation with a dedicated project manager and implementation manager. We go through, we launch your non-PO, we launch your PO, or mapping our software to your business processes. We do one-on-one training, AP training, admin training, and even OCR training. And then we also provide access to our level 1 and level 2 support team. I think the punchline on this slide is these are large endeavors, launching a piece of software alongside your ERP, and it does take some hand holding, and that's what we've certainly excelled at as we've gone through and continue to launch alongside SyteLine. So I did promise you I would keep it brief on my introduction. The next part, I'd like to hand it over to Brian Fraser and Denny Hendricks to talk about the SyteLine and Nimbello integration.
All right, thank you, Damien. My name is Brian Fraser. Some of you may know me. I'm one of the partners at FAIC Group. I used to work for Infor years and years ago, and now we're obviously a SyteLine and Infor shop with other products like LN and also Oracle. We wrote this integration with the help of Nimbello, and Denny Hendricks is one of the main developers on here. This is the process of taking all the purchase orders, receipts, and doing a three-way validation with the OCR and creating the automated voucher. Obviously, there is the payment aspect of it too. It is a solution that is for the cloud or on-prem. It doesn't really matter which way you guys are. It is a process that takes about 3 hours to install and validate. and it's done. And that is in your test environment and for your live environment. And we provide you support with this installation, integration, and also we provide a maintenance, because if you're on the cloud, you have to take the updates and the uplifts, as we call them, from Infor every month. And if there's any breaks, then we will fix it for you with the maintenance as well. So like I said, I want to keep it brief. Danny, if you have any additional comments, feel free.
No, Brian, it's good. I think you covered it. I'll be on the call maybe towards the end if there's any technical questions that we want to get into, but I don't want to take up too much time right now with that part of it. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you both. Damien, back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brian, Denny. Okay. All right. So let's get into something that's a little bit more, I don't know, rewarding than us going through and telling you all about our company and all the cool things we do. As I mentioned earlier, we're fortunate enough today to have two contacts from our customer Edsal here, Boris Goldenberg and Wesley Higdon, who you'll see both of them on camera. Boris and Wes, would you care to just provide a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. Boris Goldenberg here. As stated, I'm the VP of IT. We went live with SyteLine in January of 2023, and at the same time, we went live with Nimbello. We've been live for now a few years now, and everything has been pretty steady, and we're very happy with the product.
And I'm Wes Higdon. I'm the assistant controller. I'm kind of the man in the Nimbello system all the time. We have a couple people that I work with at my company, Edsal, which does most of the matching for non-POs, and then any instances where there are issues that need handling, they'll take care of that as well, but I oversee those.
Perfect. Boris, you kind of jumped the gun there a little bit and went to the punchline, but that's okay. we still got some questions for you. All right, so great. We very briefly talked about AP, right? Before we get into the AP questions, could you just tell us, who is Edsal? What do you guys do? Tell us a bit about your business, so everybody understands what it is you guys do.
Sure. So we are America's largest in-house manufacturer of steel shelving and cabinets. We sell to big retail stores like Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, etc. So if you walk into those, you'll see steel shelves. Chances are manufactured by us.
Yeah, I had realized in the last week that I've got about 7 of them in my garage. So that was quite a revelation. So yeah, how long have you guys been in business for?
Oh, I want to say since the 50s or 60s. Yeah, a while.
And what does your your site setup look like across the United States? Do you have multiple locations, multiple manufacturing locations?
The biggest one is in Chicago. Then we also have sites in Gary, Indiana, in Pennsylvania, and California. Yeah, but Chicago is the biggest site.
And it's headquartered in Chicago?
Correct.
Okay. And who are your vendors? Or what are your vendors and your supplies?
So our vendors, I guess, since we are a steel manufacturer, the biggest vendors are steel, right? So we go for about 100 million pounds of steel per year. So outside of automotive industry, we consume a lot of steel. We're up there. So I would say that's number one. Wes, any other big vendors come to mind?
Steel pretty much covers it. 70% of all of our products are steel, so everything is based in steel. So that's where we're getting all of our materials from.
Fair enough. As far as a general kind of size of your accounts payable team, how many invoices do you guys receive annually?
Ooh, to put a number on it, it's got to be 40,000 or so. I think. Boris, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems about right.
Sounds about right.
I could go pull a number for you, but I
Yeah.
thought I'd give you the opportunity to just answer.
I try
right,
not to count them all. There's a lot.
Yeah, totally understand. It adds up real quick. Tell us about, could you just give us kind of the lay of the land of your accounts payable team today? What kind of setup you've got, what other tools you use, people, processes, systems, kind of walk us through everything you're doing for AP.
Yeah, so we, of course, use Nimbello for the AP system. We actually have 3 joint AR AP clerks. Originally, we had 3 of each in AR and AP separately. We have consolidated that to have 3 total. So they'll go into Nimbello, and they're kind of the main point of contact for our AP process. All invoices that are non-PO, they go directly to them, which then they direct to the correct person who will approve those invoices, whether it being our plant manager or myself or the controller. Boris has a few that he has to for IT. And we have it set up so that way we can direct those to the appropriate personnel, and without having to send an email or reminders specifically to those people. Nimbello kind of does that for us, which helps us to keep in track of who's going in and approving, as well as what's out there. So with our team kind of doing the joint ARAP, them having the time to go into Nimbello, and all the invoices are right there, pretty easy to get in. And there's a lot of automation that comes in, whether it being the OCR and it's pulling in all of the numbers for us, or it's the GL, because we're able to link the GL to specific customers. It'll automatically pull those in. Any POs are automatically kind of pushed through, and since they're on a PO process, it's approved. And most of those we don't even have to really touch, which it saves a lot of time for our AP personnel.
I should have asked you this ahead of time, or had the stat myself, but would you have a sense of what percentage of touchless you have?
That's probably 70% plus.
Yeah, that feels right in the right range.
Yeah, especially with all our steel purchases, that's it adds up when you get a steel invoice, maybe 5 or 10 a day, and those are all on PO, and they get matched and pushed through without us even have to look at them.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So this is Monique Wentz with Gorman Rupp in Ohio, and we also have a lot of steel and foundries. Do you have a lot of material surcharges? So your PO price is 10, but when it gets there, because of material surcharge, yeah, it's 10 unit price, but this month it's a $5 material, and next month it's a $7 material surcharge.
Yeah, so what we end up doing is we have multiple POs set up in a block. We do our POs based on essentially a week's time frame of steel. So that cuts down on a lot of the variances that we'll see in our steel pricing from week to week. And we have deals with our steel vendors for them to provide at those prices. But if there are any surcharges or anything that comes up that's not directly steel related, we do have the account set up for it to automatically go through. Say there's tax or something on a specific PO, maybe not steel, since that's kind of our main go-to, but any other PO that has tax, there's a tax code, And when the OCR picks up that tax code, it'll automatically code it and process it through. We don't even have to touch.
But the surcharges, is that going to cause a no process variance that you have to reconcile with Nimbello somehow?
There may
So does it
be
reject?
a variance there. Sometimes there's a price variance or a quantity variance, and those are really the only ones that we have to look at. But as we have our week-long PO for open POs, that kind of saves us a little bit from having to do having a lot of those surcharges come in.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Monique. Great. Well, okay, maybe transitioning slightly, and this might be a bit more for you, Boris. What were you doing before Nimbello?
So before Nimbello, and I guess Nimbello and SyteLine go hand in hand because we went live with both at the same time. Prior to that, we were an old, highly customized version of Microsoft Great Plains. And then for AP automation, we used this product called MetaViewer, which was only halfway implemented. It only had handled non-PO invoices. It never handled PO invoices. So it was, half a solution.
Well, real quick, what percentage of your invoices are PO versus non-PO? Again, I probably have that stat readily available, but I don't.
40, 70, 30. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, for the most part, it's maybe 75, 25, but it's, yeah, up there. We try to do as much as we can on PO because it keeps track of everything and it makes it easier for us going forward with those PO numbers.
Absolutely. That's what we see as a concentrated push across our customer base, trying to move everything to PO. Real quick, I wasn't planning on touching on this, but you said you launched SyteLine and Nimbello at the same time, and all cards on the table. I wasn't part of Nimbello at that point in time. What was that like? Because a lot of people they perceive a heightened amount of risk in kind of having multiple projects going on. Could you just walk us through that?
I think it makes for an interesting story to some of the attendees here. So going back to 2022, we are halfway through our ERP implementation, where everything is going well. And part of our implementation, Infor promised that as part of the implementation, they will implement base functionality for PO and non-PO AP automation within Infor. Halfway through the project, they come to admit that functionality doesn't exist and there's no way they'll be able to deliver it, which then leaves me to scramble because AP automation was a full requirement and we promised the board that this would be delivered as part of our migration to a new shiny cloud-based ERP. So then I started a mad scramble to find a vendor that has a solution. And besides Nimbello, I could not find anybody else that had that product. And even back then, I think Damian mentioned now you have 28 customers on this solution. Back then, I think we're, if not the first one, then probably the second one. So it was risky. The way I mitigated the risk is we agreed with Nimbello to do a quick proof of concept. So once we agreed, the contract was signed. That proof of concept was executed in a matter of weeks. And once it proved to be successful, we green lighted it, and they were able to execute the project and really saved us from a bad situation. So that's one of the reasons why I'm grateful to Nimbello. They made sure that our go live was successful and on time in a very compressed timeline, because we were almost at the point of a couple months away from go live, only to find out that we were let down by Infor. Not sure if Infor is on a call, but they're aware.
So I appreciate that, Boris, because I really didn't know what I was going to get asking that question. and I didn't know the story, so it turned out to be a good one. I was taking a risk with that question. So if I were to maybe make some assumptions here, you would have preferred to have launched at a different timeline, but you're kind of forced into a situation where you had to launch Nimbello and SyteLine at the same time.
Well, ideally, we would have had enough time and luxury to, take our time and make sure to thoroughly test instead of going to crunch mode and scrambling to figure out how we're going to deliver the solution, because we can't find anybody else besides Nimbello to do it. So lucky for us, you guys were able to step up to the plate, but it kind of it was a bit of a risky situation. This is 3 years ago.
Certainly, yeah, and that's kind of the angle I was pointing at there. What about before Great Plains? Were you fully manual your AP process before that other piece of software that only did NonPO?
I think it does, but no one does that.
We were on Great Plains for many years. I imagine probably before then, I'm sure we were manual. We're also much smaller, so we've been growing quite rapidly in the last 6-7 years. So I imagine that it was probably easier to handle the volume back then.
Yeah, just understood. Okay, now I get to go to the punchline you brought up right at your introduction, Boris. What is life like now with Nimbello?
So for me, on the IT side, I do get to approve a lot of non-PO invoices. It's all IT invoices are non-PO. So I get my notification emails once a day. I go in, I see here's my POs here's my invoices that need to be reviewed, approved, or routed somewhere else. It's a fairly routine and quite easy. Wes had also mentioned, and Wes, maybe you can speak more to that our AP department has shrunk, and also the accuracy has greatly increased. Wes, you want to provide some more color on that?
Yeah, so in our initial setup, we have it in Infor that we have specific customers that have GL codes that will go directly to that customer. And, sometimes there's a lot of GL codes in different companies. I used to be an auditor, so I know can be quite a bit of GL codes out there. So having a Nimbello have the access to see the GL that goes to a customer where our AP team may not originally know where to code it, and it has that base in there, it helps them to be able to get through invoices a lot faster. And originally, as I said, we started with 3 AP and 3 AR and not 3 AR, and now we have consolidated to have 3 total AR and AP. The amount of time that it takes just to for our AP clerks to get through all of the information has decreased enough that it's kind of on the backside for them, because it's a quick go in, see if there's anything that needs to be coded specifically, who does it need to go to, and then Nimbello takes care of the rest with approvals. Instead of trying to hunt down an approval, it has a system within it that will allow you to leave comments, which we use extensively, because if there is an issue with an invoice, you just leave a comment to the person, it sends them an email, they can go in, respond right there. And then, as a past auditor, I enjoy seeing those, because if there's a issue with the invoice where, say, this invoice was selected for audit, I can specifically go in, say, oh, why was this invoice put in a specific way? And I can see all the comments, and it helps me to have a better understanding of all of the AP and all of the invoices that are going in through our system. So, that it helps me a lot. And since we do all of our invoicing now through Nimbello, because there was a time when we were on Great Plains where some, as Boris mentioned, some of the POs were put in manually, whereas we had the MetaViewer for the non-POs. And even then, we had some non-POs that wouldn't go through our MetaViewer process. We created a standard here now that every invoice has to go through Nimbello. So when audit time comes around, it takes me 10 minutes to look up, a selection of 30 invoices rather than trying to track down where it went. And it has the invoice copies there for me, and it makes it just very easy for me to get selections out to auditors, which I enjoy being a past auditor. I do see a hand up.
Yeah, Taryn, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we're talking a lot about kind of implementations people have had, but is there a process flow to walk through? And specifically why I was asking, I heard the comment from one of the guys that, you go in and see who to send an approval to. Does the system have machine learning where it knows where a certain vendor's invoices normally go to for approval? Or is that something you manually have to send?
So
I
most
think
of
it
them,
learns.
they're set up.
I know for IT, a lot of the IT vendors, over time, we've defaulted them so that you don't have to keep touching them every single time. It already knows that here's the, if it's an IT vendor, it goes to the IT queue. And also it goes to the default coding for GL expense is already pre-filled. So it gets easier and easier over time.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Damien, but I believe because there were some times where I went in when we did our implementation, we had a goods received, not invoiced category with the transition to Infor. And, say we had 30 steel invoices that were on our GRNI list. At that point, I was going into those invoices, and after a while, it started automatically sending those invoices to me, which granted I didn't want, but at the same time, it learned that I was the one approving and looking at, and it started sending them directly to me. So I was able to switch it within Nimbello because I can automatically set who it will go to, whether it's our receiving people in one of our locations. But I believe that's how it was working, if that's correct, Damien.
Yeah, so I couldn't personally tell you if that is correct, but I may call on Geraldine from our product team to address that.
Yep, absolutely. So this is part of what I'll go through as well in the demo. We'll have about 15 minutes or so to go through the actual site so you guys can get a little bit of visual of what's going on as well. But as far as PO and non-PO invoices are concerned, there's lots of not only preset automation, but the system does do a level of learning depending on vendor consistency, setups, various different things. And the implementation group does an excellent job of walking you through what are your setups, what types of things do we need, what are your 80-20 rules, 80% does this, 20% does that. And kind of walking through that process. So I'll hit on a couple of those points as we go through the demo here in a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. And I will pass it over to you momentarily here. Boris and Wes, I just have one last question for you. This one's a bit more specific. Looking back at your AP automation journey, what's one key lesson that you would share with other executives that are considering this transformation?
I'll have two. So one is, for us, it was pivotal to go through a proof of concept so that if we fail fast. So that was invaluable for us to quickly get comfortable that the product works. That was one. And I guess the other point, which was helpful, is you can't get enough training. So going through multiple rounds of training was super helpful. And I know some of the feedback we received from AP after the fact was, I wish that they had a little more training. So those two takeaways from me.
Hey, you actually stole my training one. That was going to be,
Oh, sorry.
There's still stuff that I learn about Nimbello as I'm going in. Granted, I'm not in it on an everyday basis, but the AP clerks that I'm working with, they always have something that they're showing me that, I didn't know. Granted, they're in it all the time. So, them having all of that training to be able to show me how I may have been looking at something a different way, it helps a lot.
Well,
Right.
one last point, Damien, I think it's important is our system of record. So Infor is our system of record, right? And I don't know if Geraldine is going to demo that, but for us, we use Nimbello to process and match and receive invoices. But at the end of the day, when the invoice is finally approved, the image, thanks to Denny developing it for us, ends up in SyteLine in Infor. So whenever we need to provide stuff to the auditor, we don't have to go between two different systems. So we can stay within Infor because that's our system of record. So that was a really pivotal decision to push the invoice images back into SyteLine.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, right, we accept that wholeheartedly, and we understand our position and our, kind of separate automated channel outside of SyteLine, adding in that automation layer, but of course, submitting everything back to SyteLine. So, Boris, Wes, you guys have been fantastic. I appreciate the kind of impromptu questions I took you through and your kind of candid response on these. We're grateful for your time today, and I'm going to now hand it over to Geraldine.
All right, let me get everything switched over here. I am just going to show my window.
You can stop sharing.
All right, and I'm going to full screen this. Since I'm on a laptop, it will make it just a little bit better. Okay, so going through the Nimbello process, there are a couple of ways that we can implement with SyteLine. And it's going to depend on your SyteLine instances. We work with a lot of companies that are a little bit more like Edsal, where the independent locations are independent. They have their own vendors, their own POs, their own receivers. Everything is independent. We have other clients who have maybe multiple sites, but they have a master site that controls all of the vendors and all of the GLs and all of that information. And honestly, we have clients that are a little bit mixed in some of that. And so what we do during the implementation investigation phase is we talk with each individually to determine what your SyteLine setup is. And that is then passed between ourselves and the implementation group to determine how best to set up the workflow as well as the file transmissions and all of those various things. So I'm going to skip the first part of the process, which is getting the invoices and getting the invoices through an OCR. I do cover that in in-depth demos that I go through with each client. So if you have questions about that, absolutely can go through that. But for today, I wanted to kind of focus our time on the workflow because that is where the nuts and bolts are. So coming into the workflow initially, we do have single sign-on available. So that allows for a little bit better security and so forth, less management of passwords, all of those great things that come on with single sign-on. And then again, we have multiple methods in which we can implement the actual workflow. If you are in separate sites and the sites maintain their own vendors and GLs and so forth, then it would be a multi-tenant model. The multi-tenant model means that you log into the specific location that you are looking to work in, and each of the locations maintains their own user list and so forth. So when I log in, and this is going to be kind of the AP type view, you are going to land on the My Tasks page. And the My Task page is going to give you a variety of items. It's going to give you your link here to the OCR. So that would link you over to the OCR. Again, that would be a single sign-on type system where you just use the link and it logs you in. Your top left here is your invoice hold. So these would be the items that did not pass your checks and balances. They're non-POs that are on hold. They're POs that are on hold because of exceptions. And as you can see here, we can also do multiple purchase order invoices, which is a newer feature that we released just a couple months ago. So if that is something that you are in need of, we do have that capability. Your right-hand side are the items that have passed all of your checks and balances and are ready to export. So these are the invoices that matched up to the purchase order, had purchase order variances, but were approved, non-POs that were geocoded and approved. All of those invoices in a batch process are going to go back out to SyteLine. And in that process, they're going to pass through another series of rules called AP review. Those review rules are designed to do checks and balances to make sure the invoice is going to pass into SyteLine appropriately. One of those checks and balances, for example, is that the PO invoice must have the part number for the PO line that is being invoiced. Vendors aren't going to always provide you your part number. We know this. And so what we do during the export process is we convert what was on the invoice to what was on the purchase order so that it will go through SyteLine appropriately without you needing to deal with the ramifications of it failing or anything like that. Once it exports, we do a confirmation process. Every invoice that goes into SyteLine, we get a confirmation back for, either a confirmation that it posted or a failure message as to why it could not post. Most invoices, with all the checks and balances we do, go through perfectly fine without any failures. There are occasionally little things here and there that could potentially cause it to kick back, and we will tell you what that kickback message was. Within the SyteLine system, the invoices are going to go to the posting screen, and you'll have a final opportunity to update a posting period or a due date or anything like that that you would like to do before you post it the rest of the way through. We also have communication tools. You can use our vendor portal to communicate directly with vendors if you want to do so. That can just be for exceptions, or it could also be for things such as payments if you want to do so. And then we also have various health checks to make sure the invoices are moving through appropriately. Starting off with the non-purchase order invoices, when you go into the queue for your non-purchase order invoices, AP gets to see everything that's out here. It doesn't matter who it's with or how long it's been there. AP gets to see it. So you're going to see the vendor, the invoice, the totals. You're going to see who it's directed to, how many days it's been in the workflow, and how many days it's been directed to that user without action. Action is something that moves the invoice forward, a comment, an approval, something that moves the invoice into another status or shows work. Opening it does not count. If you are on a SyteLine system where you have a master site, this is where you could see the individual location, the individual site that that invoice is for. So if you have 3 sites and you have a master site that has all your vendors, GLs, we can associate the specific invoice to the specific site that that invoice belongs to, and the export will then put it into the appropriate location automatically. But from an AP perspective, you have a singular view where you can see everything versus separated per location. Anytime you see the view, you can, or view invoice image, you could see the original image of the invoice. And when you go into the details, what you are going to see in the details, again, is a little bit initially designed for AP, the ease of AP, but then simplified as well for your end users. So you've got a thumbnail image up here on the top, but again, view invoice image will give you a full screen image that is mobile. You can move it around. You've got your vendor address information, you've got why it's on hold, and you've got your header information. You can quickly open up the header to make changes. You can change it from PO to non-PO and vice versa. You can see different things. You can view approval groups. You've got your commenting section down here, which is what Wes was talking about. You can send a comment to users that are in the workflow who have access. And so if I want to send a comment to Lucy, I can simply click on Lucy's name and I can type a comment and I can send her a message. If I want to send it to Lucy and Betty, I can do so by choosing both individuals. I can also redirect the invoice, even though it's part of an approval group. If Reggie has a question for somebody in a different department or somebody in the group below him, any of those things, you can send it to other individuals for it to show up in their workflow, in their My Task page, and they can answer it, send it back to Reggie, and then Reggie can approve it. So there is variations of what you can do as far as that commenting section is concerned. As far as assigning the approval group, there's several ways to assign the approval group. One way is that the approval group is identified on the invoice. So if you provide the vendor with the vendor approval group information, then it could be picked up off of the invoice. If a vendor always goes to the same vendor every time, it can be set up to go to that approval group. If the approval group is dependent upon the location, it can be set up so that that vendor location, that vendor site combination can be sent to an approval group. It can also be set up so that we look at that vendor and site combination. And if the last 3 completed invoices all went to the same group, then the 4th one and the 5th and the 6th and so forth will also go to that group without any setup, just going based on the history. If at any time something needs to be redirected for any reason, it could be redirected with the approval group dropdown, and it could be sent to a new location as needed. Anything that is done on the invoice is saved with the comment history. So all of this in here, this is part of that audit package. So all of it is available within the workflow here. And as part of the image export, if you want to have the images exported to IDM or DocTrack or anything like that, then we can send this audit package as well as an additional page to the invoice image that is going out to that system. So you not only have the original image, but you can also have your comment history, which is your audit. You can also have backup of any additional documentation that's been added to the invoice, and a copy of the GL coding for that non-PO invoice. As far as GL coding is concerned, there are various options, again, available in the GL coding. We do offer allocation coding. If you're familiar with allocations at all, allocations can be set up to be used ad hoc or assigned to a vendor or a vendor site combination. You can also, as Wes Boris we're talking about, you can default GL so that it automatically shows up for as many segments as you are utilizing. It can automatically show up for you. And we can also show you in this section down here, for invoices that have completed, we can show you previous history of those GL codes as well, so that the user has it. If there is variation, they can see what invoices, what variations there have been across the last 3, 4, 5 invoices. Once the user is satisfied that the GL coding is good, that the invoice is good to approve, they will either have the approve or final approval button. That is dependent upon their security within the approval group. If the invoice is within their authority, they will have final approve. If it's outside of their authority, they will have approve and it will go automatically to the next person. So AP doesn't have to double check, did everybody sign off on it, whose authorities, they don't have to memorize anything, they don't have to memorize changes. The system is going to do that for you. So that is a basic rundown of the non-purchase order invoices. Quickly go into a couple of PO invoices. The PO invoices, as Wes was saying, there are various rules and so forth that are going to run that are going to determine, do you have appropriate information or not to pass this invoice? That appropriate information is going to be dependent upon what setup you want to have. Do you allow pricing variances? If you have tax, do you want it to pass? Do you want it to hold? If you have a freight charge or a tariff charge or something like that, do you want it to pass? Do you want it to hold? Do you want it to pass at a certain percentage or dollar amount and hold if it's over that percentage or dollar amount? All of those are different variations that can be implemented within the workflow that are set up specifically for your instances based on your business. We don't force you into specifics as far as that is concerned. You can also choose who it is that should be responsible for taking care of the problem if there is a problem with a PO invoice. Pricing variances, for example, may go directly to the buyer. They are the one that set up the PO. They should handle the variances. But receipts, maybe they go to the receiving department instead, and the receiving department needs to check on why there aren't enough receipts available. And so those various items not only can be done via variation, but they can also be done via the who they should be directed to and so forth. The information on these is going to be very similar in the details to what the non-purchase order look like. So at the header, you're still going to have the original invoice. You're still going to have why it's on hold, the header information. You have the full comment section, including why the invoice is on hold. If it is a pricing hold or a receiving hold, we will also tell you exactly which line or lines have the issue. So it's not a guessing game. We will tell you exactly where the problem is. And then the bottom section here is where the user is going to see the purchase order and receipt information. We do also register the release. So for example, this is line 2, release 0, line 4, release 0. If you don't use releases, it'll all be .0. If you do use releases, it will show the actual release number that is associated with each of those and the associated receivers and quantity available that is associated with each of those as well. We refresh the purchase order and receipt information throughout the day, usually 3-4 times throughout the day. And we try and schedule that at times that is convenient for both yourselves as well as client usage to make sure that we're getting the best use of refreshing the data and moving it forward. And the bottom section here is what was OCR'd off of the invoice. So again, it may not have the appropriate part number, that's okay. It may not have the appropriate price, that's okay. May not have the appropriate quantity. Again, all of those things are okay. The system, the workflow is going to go through and it's going to use determining factors to determine which line and release you're billed for. And then from there, are you billed accurately? And if there is something that is outside of the tolerances that are configured, then we will send it to the individual responsible and move that forward then. Okay, so lots of information. We have about 5 minutes left, so I want to go ahead and turn it back over to Damien for any last minute questions, anything like that. I would love to do a demo for each company that's represented here. So if you guys have any questions, you want deeper information, I'd absolutely love to be able to do that for you.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. That was fantastic. And I think just as Geraldine highlighted, we didn't allocate enough time to go into some of the deeper functionality, specifically our OCR. And I saw some questions in the chat around our OCR. We've got some videos we can share, and also happy to jump on and show you thoroughly our OCR capability. At this time, we've got 4 minutes left. So we're actually over schedule, even though I thought we'd be kind of running behind a little bit. We'll just open it for any questions. You can ask questions to Boris and Wes or Geraldine from a technical perspective, or myself or Brian or Denny. Please feel free to just jump in or drop it in the chat. And I will just do the awkward silencing for maybe 1 minute, if there aren't any.
Well, we're waiting on some questions to pop up. A couple of additional items that I'm sure Wes uses on a regular basis is our accrual process, or accrual report process. So it gives you a listing of all of the invoices that are in the workflow that have not yet been completed. So all the items that are on hold by line item, as well as non-POs by line item GL. And so that's easily exportable to Excel and can make your month end. I've had some clients let me know that it's gone from 2 weeks to 2 days as far as their month end processes are concerned, being able to utilize that and knowing that all the information is readily available.
Okay. If you do have any questions after this, we're all available. Thank you so much for spending an hour of your day with us. We really appreciate your time, and hope to talk to you in the future.